Hi, welcome to the Shutdown Hero podcast, where we give out tips on hacking darts and essentially just giving you overall tips on life. And some of these tips are going to be handy for your next shutdown that you attend. So listen up and listen well. And let me just get first things first. A shutdown hero is a completely different paradigm in comparison with oil rig workers, in comparison with pipeline construction workers, in comparison with you know, pretty much a city worker. You could name all different types of industries. So a shutdown hero, like we touched on yesterday, talking about tethering his hard hat, all that jazz, smoking darts in fenced off area. When make sure there's an extinguisher just in case you start a fire on the facility. You don't want to start a fire. You don't want to be that guy that gets extra attention on you. There's already enough attention from people that are thinking they're Super Mario Brothers trying to challenge to get to the next level, all whopped up on hallucinogenic mushrooms because they had just passed their drug test the previous week, and they're extremely proud that they were able to clean themselves up for approximately 14 days and essentially pass the alcohol and drug test. Usually it's the urine test. Urine analysis is a big component towards getting on a shutdown. So a lot of guys from the shutdown are basically like the traveling circus, man, and when you're part of the traveling circus, you definitely do a lot of drugs. So other than that, here's one of the biggest things a shutdown hero will do. You'll see this. I never see it. I work on oil drill rigs. I work in shutdowns and work pipeline labor past 25 years. So I can vouch for a lot of this stuff. My older brother, Aaron, same thing. He's been in the shutdown circuit for a long time, along with the drill rigs and pipeline construction. And Scotty, a good friend of mine who's an equipment operator for the pipeline. Used to be an edgy drill rig worker at one point, but I don't think he liked tripping pipe all night, you know? So your shutdown worker is going to definitely pretend. You're going to see this odd guy on the shutdown who pretends to be gay, okay? He pretends to be gay so that he can give out the active authority in certain situations, social situations specifically, and let out a lot of edgy, salty, on that thin red line, those type of comments, right? About sexuality and sexual orientation and, you know, because he's pretending to be gay. People think he's gay, so therefore he can get away with those edgier comments, those one hitters that end up getting a lot of straight guys ratted out to the HR. So once you get ratted out, HR early in a shutdown, you're probably going to get released from that shutdown because senior management doesn't want anyone making gay comments. That's a big fucking no-no right there. So you know what? You'll see it, guys pretending to be gay just to let out some salty comments. A shutdown hero. We're going to go to the mailbag now. That's the point in our show where we're going to take some mail from our fans. So I got some mail here, and he asked me, what kind of personal protective equipment does a shutdown hero actually buy? Well, the veteran shutdown hero, he maximizes his boot allowance through the union hall and through his benefit package. So usually you'll see a shutdown hero not only have one pair of Timberlands or Red Wings, with the fancy orthopedic fucking fitted soles and shit like that. They're going to have two sets of boots along with their Dunlops in the back of their Subaru car that they might have out front, or, your average Alberta jacked up fucking Duramax diesel, with 38-inch tires and no bull balls and white Oakley glasses, that type of shit, probably an 8-ball of Coke in the fucking cubby hole. So that shutdown hero is going to maximize his boot allowance, and he's always going to be rocking real nice boots because essentially you're on your feet all day, and those are your money makers on a shutdown, is moving from A to B. And I personally give out tips that, you know what, man? I love my Dunlop boots. Always have, always will. On any given day on an oil rig, as a roughneck, dropping off samples, going up and down the shakers, getting up and down the fucking V-door stairs, climbing around the fucking top drive. I mean, there's a lot of times where I love my Dunlops, and I can go anywhere. I bring those on the shutdowns as well. I always have a pair of leather boots too, but you know what? I'm a big fan of the green Dunlops. So moving forward, we're going to talk about mailbag ideas. Here we go. Living allowance, types of lodging. We're going to move into the debatable and regretful choices that a guy makes. You know, sometimes he commits to an Airbnb, sometimes he's in a seedy motel, sometimes he's in a trailer at the campground, which is a good. Sometimes he's tenting it. He's on, in Tent City, where LOA is. He's saving a lot of his LOA. But types of lodging I'm going to highly recommend here is do not ever get a room in a group house, in like a crew house, unless you know all the individuals involved, because you're always going to have a couple of meth heads or crack addicts or, just straight up alcoholics that are loud and they're up all night. You don't want to be around that type of shit during shutdowns. You're on a 6-1, you want to maximize your sleep. So I highly recommend, if you can, if you're in a big center, get an Airbnb. If you can't do an Airbnb, then the next best thing, unfortunately, is getting a decent hotel where you're going to get some sleep. That's important. The next part of it is going to be, okay, now we're going to that part where it says, we talked about the orientation of being gay. Okay, what does a shutdown hero do with his money, you might ask? On Thursday nights, on payday. They get paid every week, primarily. Sometimes you get paid bi-weekly. Shutdown heroes are making a side hustle, so they're always making sure they have a side hustle. That side hustle could be the Polymarket wallet apps, something like that, or some of the Bitcoin ideas and crypto and all that shit. You'll see a guy making some good cash, and then, next thing you know, he flips up his other app, and he's like, hey, man, come look at my phone. Look what I got here. He's got like this, Bet365 app where he just won like $2,800 the night before, and then just lost like $3,400 right in front of you in the 5 minutes you were talking, out by the shack there having a dart. Well, hacking darts, giving tips. He's always giving out tips, what he should bet on. And you know what? I don't condone gambling online or in the casino, because you know what, it's you're never going to win. So a shutdown hero should realize that his rehabilitation of the mind is to get away from sports betting and get more involved in the crypto or the investments where you can actually buy, dollar stocks, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So make your money, maximize your money, pretend to be gay, and, wear proper boots. You know what? There's a whole variety of things that we can get into, but there's also a bunch of plethora of incidents that came online. Alberta OH&S has revealed all the different types of incidents specific to the fatality investigations, in conjunction with Alberta OH&S reports. So the first report is, okay, a worker was fatally injured while working under a vehicle. So you can imagine he was a mechanic. Worker was pinned underneath the vehicle, the worker, while he was repairing it. So obviously they don't tell you the cause of, what happened, but obviously the worker was underneath a jacked up vehicle, and the vehicle came down on him and it pinned him to his death. And that was April 28th, 2025. The next one was, this presents findings from a fatality in Alberta that occurred in September 2024 in the utility sector. So this is a pipeline one, most likely. A worker was fatally injured after being struck by a trencher as it was being unloaded off its deck trailer, his tilt deck trailer. So, you know what, man? People always got to look at that danger zone. Am I in the right spot? Am I standing in the right fucking spot? Do I know where I stand? Well, we already talked about knowing where you stand with your sexual orientation. Well, you should definitely know where you're standing with regard to situational awareness when unloading, pipe, when you're unloading equipment onto flatbeds and various heavy equipment, right? Here's another one. Presents a construction. This is construction trades. A worker was on a ladder. He was struck by an object falling from the ladder, and then he sustained fatal injuries. So essentially, he was probably up 10 or 12 feet off a ladder, came down on the concrete floor. Here's another.